Hey Hermits, welcome back to my channel. It's Dara here and I am back for your July wrap up. So the roundup of all of the books that I read in the month of July. So you'll notice that we are back in my bed. I'm in my pajamas with my hair in a wrap because it's just one of those days and I want to get this video filmed. So without more preamble, let's get to it. Now I want to say that I had a prolific reading month in the month of July. I really did. And I think a piece of that is just because July is always a good reading month for me. It is always a month that feels dead summery, and that's a time when I just feel myself wanting to get immersed in books. And then on top of that, we had a crazy heat wave, which meant very little sleep and lots of reading. And then last but not least, I also did a bit of a Kindle Unlimited challenge for myself this month, which put my total number of books read way up there. So let's get to it. So the first book that I read in the month of July was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And the reason that I picked it up is because it was a book club choice for the little book club that I'm in like real life rather than online life. And I have to say, I loved it. I know that Malibu Rising it's not quite as well received as The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo or Daisy Jones and the Six, but honestly I think it is such a gem, and I will tell you why. So obviously, like Daisy Jones and Evelyn Hugo, they're very much steeped in glamour and drama and celebrity culture, which is a fun time. It really is. But there are elements of that that are just not relatable to the everyday person. Like, of course, there are some stunning moments and there are some epic ways that relationships are handled in both of those books, and there are definitely a lot of quotable lines. But there was something about Malibu Rising for me that just felt so personal. And yes, that you still have that air of 1970s 80s glamour, because you know that it's set in that world, that we have some of those characters, but this is more about family and specifically sibling relationships. And when I say that this is the most relatable book I've ever read, I don't think I'm exaggerating. So I imagine you've heard the synopsis by now, but Malibu Rising tells the story of four siblings, the four Weaver siblings, and the oldest being Nina, and then we have Kit, we have Hud, and we have, oh, I can't remember the other one's name, Jay? I may be completely wrong there. It's been a long month. But we have four siblings, so we have daughter, two twin boys, and then the youngest daughter. And Nina has to really take responsibility for taking care of her siblings. Her mum has some real struggles in her relationship with her dad. Her dad is very absent. He is, you know, he's this superstar that just walks in and out of their lives at his leisure. The mum is always very much in love with him, and as such has real struggles with poverty and with alcohol abuse, and Nina is left to take charge. And at one point Nina gets custody of her siblings and has to make some really big sacrifices in order to make sure that they have a good start in life. And it just felt very much like the way that I was raised. So I was the oldest of four siblings. You know, it was similar structure, so there were two boys and two girls, and I was very much the responsible one who had to take care of everyone, you know, make sure they ate properly, make sure they did their homework, all of that stuff. And it involved a lot of sacrifice. And the reason that I'm telling you this is that Taylor Jenkins Reid had that experience down perfectly. The kind of things that Nina was thinking and the kind of things that Nina was saying are things that I have thought and I have said multiple times, especially during my youth. And I think that when an author is able to do that, to make it feel so real, even though, you know, it's very removed from my day-to-day life. Like, I am not some like supermodel surfer living in Malibu in the 80s. I'm just not. And yet I could feel this sense of sameness with Nina as a character, and I just thought it was it was brilliantly done. It was a lot more understated than both Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones. And I think because of that, people have felt disappointed. Like, they've thought that it's going to be, again, this like high society drama, and it's really not. This one is more about the small moments and the like platonic love and sibling love, and you know, that's not as exciting. There aren't as many ups and downs there, and yeah. So I don't think it's been received as well, but I just thought it was fabulous. I really did. I read it in a day. It was a good time. So from a high to a low, the next book I read in the month of July was My Policeman by Bethan Roberts. And I've had this sitting on my Kindle for quite some time now. I think I heard it recommended by Jack Edwards originally. Did I? I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure he's the first person that I heard talk about it. And I had some hopes for this book. I put it on my 22 books to read in 2022 list, which I will link to in the description. And I thought it was going to rip me to shreds. I thought I was going to adore it. And I just didn't. Let me tell you why. There was not one single page of that book that was not miserable. And it wasn't like a fun, like touching me at my very core kind of misery. It was just like this steady, glum badness that was taking place in each of the characters' lives, and like you could just see all of the poor choices that they were all making, and it was just miserable, and I felt miserable reading it. And you know, that is not what I want. That is not what I want to bring in my life. I want books that make me feel good. Ultimately, I don't mind if we have hard moments. I don't mind if we have difficult situations, if we have a lot of sadness, if we have a lot of grief. I'm fine with that. But I want something that gives me hope, something that brings me happiness. And this book just had nothing to offer in that field. So if you don't know what it's about, it is kind of like a love triangle, let's say. We have Tom, who is a policeman, the policeman of the title. And during the book, he marries Marion, who is a teacher and who adores him, while carrying on a love affair with Patrick, who is a museum curator. And this is set in, I want to say, the 50s or 60s in Brighton in the UK. And so, you know, it's illegal to be gay. Not only will he face like getting arrested and, you know, his career being over, but he would also be very much rejected by his community. And it's really about navigating that relationship or those relationships. And yeah, I really expected more from it. It just felt like low level misery the whole time, and not an awful lot happened, not an awful lot was felt. Like it wasn't it for me. It wasn't it. The next book that I finished in the month of July was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This was a reread for me. You don't need to know the synopsis because surely you already do. You know, Regency England, a bunch of people are trying to get married / avoid marriage and, you know, be polite. That's kind of the synopsis of all Jane Austen books, if I'm being frank. But I picked this up via audio as part of a year-long buddy read that I'm doing with a group of friends, and I'm way behind. I should be, I think, four books into the 6-book series. Not really a series, but the 6-book collection, and I've only read 2. I've only read Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. I need to get to Mansfield Park next because that is one that I haven't read. I've read the previous 2, but Mansfield Park is my white whale right now. I can't seem to get myself in the mood, and everyone in our little group chat who has read it has not enjoyed it, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Then I started my like how many Kindle Unlimited books can I read challenge, because I decided to cancel my KU account for a while, and I had like this 10-day window of still having access. So I thought, okay, let's see what we can do here. And I read a whole bunch of books, and I did a vlog talking about all of those, so I'm not going to go into an awful lot of depth here, but I will just quickly share what I read in what order and kind of an overview of what I thought. So Real by Kennedy Ryan, if you are a regular visitor here at That Hermit Life, you will know that I am a diehard Kennedy Ryan fan. I only discovered her work this year and I have been making my way through the entire backlist, and Real was stunning. So it tells the story of the romance between a high-powered LA director and a relatively unknown actress who is starring in a biopic that he's making about a fictional jazz singer, and it is just stunning. The level of representation in this book, particularly racial representation but also chronic illness representation, are just handled with straight up magic. Really love this book. Then I read Worth Waiting For by Jack Burrows, which is another romance, and this was between a doctor and a nurse, and I really didn't have a great time reading it. I mean, it was fine in the moment, but honestly it was very, very forgettable. Next, I picked up the full Clifton Forge series by Devney Perry, and this is sort of a collection of 6 interconnected standalone romances set in a town called Clifton Forge in Montana, and all of these romances are connected to this old biker gang called the Tin Gypsies. And so we have, you know, like a former member, or we might have like the friend of a former member or the daughter of a former member, and like those are the relationships that we're seeing explored in each of these books. And I had a great time reading all of them. I read them back to back. So much fun. Yeah, I definitely go into more depth in that video where I'm talking about them, but in order they are Steel King, River Knight, Stone Princess, Noble Prince, Fallen Jester, and Tin Queen. So 6 books in all of them were great. If you're tempted to pick any of these up, I would definitely recommend starting at book 1 and working your way through, because there are like stories that are carried through multiple books. So there are like bigger mysteries going on or bigger bits of drama going on that are developed over the series. So definitely heed me on that. But all in all, they were a great time. And I also loved that they were quite different from each other in terms of tropes. So I feel like we see all of the romance tropes explored at some point in the series as a whole, which is fun. So there's something for everybody. Then I picked up another series, the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey, which is a 5-book series, and I rattled through that even quicker. I maybe spent 36 hours reading all 5 of those books, maybe even less time if I'm being honest. I don't know, I can't remember, but they were a fun time. So the Mindfuck series tells a story of just one couple, the guy being an FBI agent who specializes in profiling serial killers, and the woman being a serial killer. And it was just so compact. I mean, they are objectively not well written. They are clearly not all that well researched either, because even just for my A-level in psychology and my attachment to watching Criminal Minds, like I'm seeing holes in the profiling, I'm seeing holes in the psychological analysis. However, you know, it's not there to be educational, it's there to be a silly, fun, dramatic time, and it was. I will say that you want to be mindful about the content warnings here. So I'm not usually one for talking about content warnings when I talk about books, because I personally feel like it is an individual's responsibility to look up trigger warnings in the literature that they read if they know they have particular triggers. But I want to really encourage you to do so with that series of books, because there are a lot of quite graphic, dark moments. So I just want to put that out there. But outside of that, so much fun. I'm almost ashamed to say how much fun, because they are clearly such trash, and if you look at the covers, they give like very like tacky 50 Shades kind of energy, and they're actually nothing like that. So the cover art is a bit of a head scratcher for me, but I had a great time. I really did. The next book that I picked up in the month of July was The Night Before by Wendy Walker. And that was an entertaining time. I was in such a mood for a thriller after finishing the Mindfuck series. And The Night Before tells the story of two sisters. So we have a sister who has her life together. So she's happily married, and she married her childhood sweetheart. They have a child, they have a home, they have steady jobs, like all of that stuff. Like she's got things together. And then her younger sister is a bit of a mess and always has been. So her younger sister had an incident as a teenager. So she was at a party with a boyfriend, and the boyfriend was murdered, and she was found like near his body, and the town kind of thought that she did it, even though somebody else was arrested for the crime. And she's never really managed to get past that. Like she's always got into like difficult relationships with men. Like they've never panned out. She's always just really been fighting a losing battle. And at the start of the story, like hot mess sister moves in with sensible sister, and just like is trying to get her life back together. And one night she goes out on a date. So she meets this guy online and she goes on a date, but she never comes home. So we are exploring two parallels. So we're exploring like the day after she doesn't come home, where her sister is trying to figure out what happened, retrace her steps, track her down, find her. And we have the night before, where she's experiencing the date and everything that followed. And it was a fun time. It was a gripping time. I thought that the twists were handled really well, that the turns were handled really well, the red herrings were great. Did I see things coming? I did, but I watch an awful lot of crime dramas, and I read a lot of thrillers and have read a lot of thrillers. So at this point, it does take a really dark mind to shock me. But I would definitely recommend it. I haven't seen anything written in quite this way before. I thought it was done quite artfully. And I loved how the sensible sister genuinely questioned whether her younger sister was to blame. Like she genuinely questioned whether her sister was a killer and was responsible for all of these things that were happening. And so yeah, it was fun. I'm glad I picked it up from the library and I enjoyed it. Then I picked up George's Marvelous Medicine by Roald Dahl. I just fancied a reread. I remember being on some reading sprints and somebody mentioned Roald Dahl, and immediately I just thought, I want to reread a bit of George. So I picked it up, read it in maybe 20-30 minutes, and it just gave me that hit of nostalgia. Although I will say, I appreciated George more when I was a kid. Now I think he was kind of a tiny sociopath, but maybe that's a conversation for another day. That same day, I believe I also finished listening to Louisiana Longshot by Jana De Leon, which is the first in the Misfortune series, which is a cozy mystery series set in Louisiana. So the premise is that a CIA agent has to go into hiding in a small town in Louisiana, and when she gets there, her intention is to, fly under the radar, not really be noticed. But her first day in town, so a bone is found in her back garden, and she gets pulled into this like society of old ladies who decide that they're gonna, solve this crime or whatever. And like the series just goes on from there. And I actually picked this up for another video, so I'm not really going to say too much more about it now, but I read it, it was fun. And then I ended the month doing a 24-hour readathon with some friends and had a great time. Again, I vlogged that, so I'm not going to talk about those books extensively. I'm just going to mention them. So I started the readathon reading A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. I'd never read any Megan Quinn before, and this one was pitched as being very like Pretty Woman-esque, and I love Pretty Woman, so that sold it for me. And honestly, it's probably the filthiest book I've ever read. So filthy. Like, if you are not into hearing some quite surprising situations involving dildos, maybe don't read it. But if you're cool with that, then you're welcome. Enjoy. The next book that I read during that readathon was Flush by Virginia Woolf, which is a fictional biography of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's pet spaniel, and it was a fun time. It really was. It was a relatively short book, but even though it was quite short, it wasn't as quick a read as I expected. And I think maybe that's more about Virginia Woolf's writing style, because she does have this very sort of slow, lyrical, wordy way of presenting a scene. And I did enjoy the writing style, but it was, I don't know, it was dense, it was slow. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to dive into more of her work. Like, I might have to think about that some more. But if you are interested in trying out a Virginia Woolf book, then I think this would be a good place to start, because it is short, so you know, it'll give you a taste without requiring a massive investment of time and energy. The next book that I read for the readathon was Dolores by Lauren Amy Curtis, and that was such a colossal disappointment. It really, really was. I was expecting great things. I thought we were going to get like hot, oppressive, summer, thrilling, chilling kind of stories there, and it was just kind of dull. It was kind of dull. Essentially, all that happened is a girl got kind of slutty, kind of pregnant, and decided to go to a convent, and that's it. That's literally it. Nothing else happened. It wasn't fun. And then I finished the readathon reading Lethal Bayou Beauty, which is the second book in the Misfortune series by Jana De Leon. And so, like, I've already told you the premise, so I don't really want to give you like too much that's going to spoil the first book. But essentially, like, our main character is still in this small Louisiana town, and another crime takes place. And for some reason, well, because she's a newcomer and an outsider, everybody has decided that she did it. So she's trying to, you know, investigate this time to prove that she's innocent, so she can stay there in hiding. Anyway, there you have it. And during the month of July, I would like to say that I hit my Goodreads target. So my Goodreads target for this year was to read 91 books, and I am now at 100. So go me. I just think it's wild that I managed to read 23 books in the month of July. I know that's, you know, typical or not that impressive for a lot of booktubers, but for me that is a lot. Usually I'm somewhere between like 10 and 14. That's my sweet spot. But 23, like, that's a hefty amount of reading done. 23 is also my lucky number, so maybe there's something there. Anyway, I'm getting rambly again, so I am going to love you, leave you, let you have a fabulous rest of your day. If you made it all the way to the end, I would love for you to either hit subscribe or pop in the comments and tell me your favourite read from the month of July. And without further ado, I'm gonna go. So I will see you soon in my next upload, which of course will be tomorrow, because we are doing VEDA in August. Expect some great things. I have some really fun ideas planned for you, so, you know, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss my uploads, and I'll see you there.